Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. Today we're going to talk about human trafficking and specifically Lancaster Anti-Trafficking Network, which is known as Latn. And the chair of that group we have Marita. And your last name?
Skasel.
Skasel, that'll get it right. Okay. Thank you for being with us so much. We also have the president of North Star Initiative and the founder, we have Jen Sensnig. Thank you for being with us. And you're also with Latn. Tell us, what is Latn?
Latn is a network of organizations and community members who are passionate about stopping the human trafficking, specifically here in Lancaster County, but also worldwide. So there are different organizations, Jen being one of the founding organizations, that came together and said, you know, we can do better together. There's a lot of us out there trying to do our part, and we can make a bigger impact by working together. So they formed a network, the Lancaster Anti-Trafficking Network, to help each other solve this issue and come together and help share resources and do community awareness, do whatever we can to help educate the community, work together to help bring an end to this issue.
When was Latn put together?
It was put together about 5 years ago, about 5.5 years ago.
Okay.
The organizations just decided that, you know, we need to do something collectively and to help each other out and keep each other in tune with what's going on with the different groups, different agencies, community members, things like that.
Well, yeah, to come together, that makes all the difference. North Star Initiative is what, Jen?
Yeah, we are a local nonprofit that is working specifically on coming alongside victims of domestic sex trafficking and exploitation. We are about restoring women for freedom for life forever and holistically surrounding them.
Wow, that's no easy task. There's a lot of work involved with that.
There is, yeah. And we are in the middle of a big initiative with that right now, in that what has really resonated with our vision is the need for specific homes to come to be open for these women because of the trauma that they come out of. And so we are currently working on getting a home called the Harbor open for these women here in Lancaster County.
So tell me about the process and how you go about helping these women.
Yeah. So as we get the phone calls or they're referred to us, you know, what continues to really present itself to us is that without the Harbor, we're band-aiding. Where you're putting a band-aid on this gaping wound for these girls. And so it's only going to get better as we serve the women and the Harbor opens to be able to surround them for a long period of time. But for the local girls that we are serving her in independent living situations right now, they come to us and they're referred to us, and then we begin to work alongside of them to find out exactly where they are at in their state of coming out of trafficking, what are the current needs, and how can we best come alongside of that within the community and within the resources that are here in the community the best that we can.
Okay. Pennsylvania, and specifically Lancaster County?
Yeah.
Talk more about that.
Well, we are a hotspot, so to speak. We're so conveniently located to so many other metropolitan areas and just a easy through. So it's a very much, while we are a huge positive tourist attraction, also brings a high volume of transient people in and out, which makes us an opportunity for those who are involved in the human trafficking. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, Jen, do you want to add some more to that? What is it about Pennsylvania in this area?
Yeah, you know, as a whole, the state of Pennsylvania, a couple years ago with the issue, we used to be called the pass-through state in regards to trafficking. Traffickers recognized that we had a great highway system to take the victims everywhere else, out to Chicago, out to all the metropolitan areas, using the I-95, using Route 30, the way it travels through the state. The I-81, the I-83, we know all of the main metropolitan highways that travel through. But what's transpired is in the past few years, we have now become a destination state, and it largely for the same reason. Traffickers and pimps have recognized that these same roads and these same highway systems are ideal for bringing it right back into our state, into Philadelphia, into Harrisburg, but even into Lancaster County specific. And at the end of the day, what we're finding is it really comes down to the simple theory of supply and demand. That as long as there's demand, these transient people who are coming through who are willing to entertain the business model, a trafficker and a pimp is more than willing to come and set up business and shop in our own backyard. And I think the other thing that makes Lancaster County kind of a key spot for this is because it is getting set up amidst a community that would not suspect this, that wouldn't be aware of it, and would kind of not be looking for it because of where we live, because we live in the heart of tourism, we live in the heart of farmland and the Amish. And so for a tourist or a trafficker or a pimp who wants to stay under the radar, our location makes such an ideal spot for them to come in and set up shop with this issue.
Yeah. Who are the victims?
I think the victims are anybody right now. You know, largely it's affecting women and girls.
Ages?
Well, key state, the key age of entry, you know, for a girl to begin being exploited and prostitute is typically anywhere from 12 to 14 years of age, current age of entry. I would say some of the women that we are currently working with, because they were trafficked by their families, which is part of what we are seeing along with this, is that some of the pimps and the traffickers end up being the family system. The moms, the grandpas, so for ones who are trafficked by families, their story starts much younger. It starts often before the age of 5, that they are groomed and exploited into the system.
What can we be aware of to possibly see this, and then what can we do?
That's a good question, because it comes in so many different avenues. And I think looking for things that sometimes I think your mind tells you that there's something that's just not right. With it, and looking for things. And I think there's usually a sense of control that these young girls and boys are being controlled by someone else, and they can't always answer questions for themselves. They have to defer to somebody else. They're afraid to answer questions that are about them. So they're usually withdrawn, and a lot of times addicted to drugs or different things like that. So there's a whole host of different things to really, and there's lots of training that's available to help people understand truly what to look for, because we don't want to assume something's going on when there's not. So you want to be careful that we're not just blanketing things with that someone's being trafficked or someone's a trafficker just because they look or act a certain way, but being sure that we're evaluating things appropriately.
We're going to put a website up on the screen. What are we going to find on that?
For Latn, it'll be some of our community partners and different organizations that'll do that, different events that we offer, and some resources. There's lots of tremendous national resources that are out there for things like what to look for, or who do you call, or I'm a maybe medical practice that may think that they see people coming in, or the emergency room. There's checklists, there's sheets there, there's links to different organizations where they can get more information.
You mentioned earlier educating, and that's what we're trying to do today too. How else do you work on educating?
Well, there's lots of different ways to educate, because the best way is to educate before it even happens. So if we can educate the families and the schools and the community how to avoid it in the first place, that's huge, because this is like conservation. The greenest energy is the energy not used. So the best way is to be able to keep it from happening. Then how do we identify if it is happening, and who do we call, and how do we who do we call to make that, locally?
Yeah.
So it's not just, there's there's an 800 number, a national hotline number out there that anybody can use, but what can we do locally? Get involved with an organization that's doing something. We're all wired differently. So what is it? Is it prevention? Is it the education? Get to know the community, what's out there, and advocacy. Some of our laws are archaic and need to change.
Yes.
And so we need to look at that. Are we protecting the victims and charging the perpetrators?
Okay.
And then restoration. We need to educate. It's not a simple fix. It's not just
Right.
rescuing them and now they're going to be, they must be better. But there's a trauma and a therapy and things that have to go into helping these young men and women to become to healing and be restored back to the value and understand that they are valued and there are things that they can contribute to society.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take a look at our community specifically and get more information when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. Today we're talking about human trafficking, specifically Latn, which is Lancaster Anti-Trafficking Network. Now joining Jen and myself, we have Detective Chris Jones. You are in East Lampeter. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Tell us, what is your experience and what are you seeing pertaining to human trafficking in your area?
Specifically in our jurisdiction, we are seeing an increase in prostitution and prostitution-related crimes. And with that, we're also starting to see some examples of human trafficking, how it would be defined legally.
Okay. How do you deal with this?
In our area, we deal with it multiple ways by trying to curb the supply and demand chain by doing specific details in order to curb it, and also to have our officers be aware of what's going on and being able to identify these type of situations when they're in our local motels or a rest stop or anywhere they may come into contact with someone.
This is no easy task. There's a lot involved with this and a lot of cooperation that's needed as well. Is that correct?
For us, yeah, these investigations can be very complex, and as Jen may say, they're not necessarily cut and dry.
Okay. Would you like to expound, Jen?
Well, I feel like Detective Jones is going to be able to speak to that a little bit better. But I know the collaborative relationship I've had with East Lampeter, from my end, coming from restoring the victim, you want to see a quick, easy process happen.
Right.
And that's not the case with these. That's not the case of even watching an investigation be able to go to its full due process. And sometimes the full due process to really one example of a ring I was involved in with an outside organized crime unit, it took 1.5 years for them to literally close the whole investigation and for justice to be brought. And so what I have been learning is there is a lot of gray mixed into this, and it's given me much greater of an appreciation of the process that they have to undergo as the victim or the prostitute is sitting in front of them, of trying to make the next decisions. Is this the prostitute or possibly a victim?
Okay. It's not just about the laws, because there all are laws, but it's much more than that in getting a result. Right, Detective?
The laws are important, and that's the aspect that we deal with. And how we go about these type of investigations is always going to be changing, and every circumstance is going to be a little bit different. So, yeah, I mean, we will deal with the cards that are dealt to us and continue to do what we can do to try to curb this issue.
So how can we, as individuals in the community, help and make a difference? How can we help with this situation and perhaps help you too?
On our side of things, we have had numerous contacts from people in the community who have just seen things that they felt are suspicious. relayed that information to us, and then we subsequently have followed up and actually have made numerous arrests based on information from normal citizens. Organizations like Jen and North Face have contacted us in the past, and and that's sometimes a start to these investigations.
What do we need to look for from your perspective since you see it?
Well, as I see it, we need to look for things that don't look correct. And you're going to know when you see something whether or this looks like a normal situation or this looks like something that's out of place. And if your gut says it doesn't look right, chances are it probably isn't.
Okay, so then the easiest way to contact you, or what we should do when we see one of these situations that makes us really uncomfortable, like you're saying, that almost inner knowing that, you know, something's not right, what do we do?
For us, you'd want to contact your local police department and let them know. And I think there's other resources that Jen has as far as more, you know, statewide or national-wide, but the first step for us would be to contact us
Is there a
locally.
department to contact or just call in?
Well, it depends where you live, and that's sort of, you know, in Lancaster County there's numerous police agencies, and we all deal with this situation a little bit differently, so I can't speak to all of them.
Okay, would you like to add to that, Jen? How can we reach out and make a difference?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to expand on what Chris has already shared. I think the one thing I'd encourage everyone to do if they suspect it's a trafficking situation would be to call. Polaris Project has got a national hotline number, and to make sure that they call the hotline number as well, because what it does is allows the tracking to happen at the national level as well. And what it will continue to do as those calls come in, and they do follow up on the phone calls that come in, they may contact someone in the local area of where the call comes from to follow up on what the person has called and reported. But what it does at the national level as well is tracks what is happening here in Pennsylvania, what is going on, and how many calls are we receiving in regards to possible suspected trafficking cases, so that we know how we need to begin to respond as a state.
Okay, and all of that information is really what helps you also do your job then as well, right, Detective?
That is correct. The more information we obtain, the better chance we have of having a successful resolution.
So if someone's thinking about it, there may be a fear for someone to come forward and say, I see this. What would you tell someone about that?
I would say there's always the opportunity to come forth and just provide that information anonymously.
Okay.
You know, it's not always the best way for us to start, but at least it's a start at that point in time.
Right. And it is about speaking up to make a difference with this, right, Jen?
Absolutely. I think everybody, you know, can have a voice with this issue. And it's a population that needs a voice because it's largely unheard. If a pimp and trafficker is in control, they are trying to shut that voice down. A lot of times, you know, the victims are literally given a completely different story, a different name, a different identity by a pimp or trafficker. So sometimes the voice that they have isn't even the accurate story or the accurate voice that can be given to what's really occurring. And so to have a community bystander to step up and do exactly what Chris said, say something's not right here.
Yeah. Let's just add a little bit more here. We're talking about things that we can do. Advocacy. Expound.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways for people to engage with the advocacy piece. You know, first of all, it comes from, you know, if you're not educated, this is a great first step. All of these people are hearing about this, and so now it demands a response today. You know, they now have an education and know that this is an issue. So further that, do something, get books, you know, go to the websites and research and educate yourself on what are the signs and what does this look like in my backyard, so that I can accurately respond and identify this if I come across this. But then I think it moves into the next piece. There's so many different local organizations that are doing something with this that they can step in and do something on the front lines. We offer a monthly advocacy training through North Star. So go to our website and sign up for the monthly advocate training so that they can educate and better become a voice and a platform. I think the part that we make it so difficult is that to be an advocate and to step in, it just starts with who you are. It starts with your own passion. And so what platform are you in life? Is it the businessman? Is it the stay-at-home mom? Is it the college student? What platform are you in that you can step in and become a voice within that sphere and use your gifts and your passions to do something with this? Anything will make a difference.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. We're going to put the website up on the screen too. We can make a difference. Thank you so much for shedding light on what you're doing and what you're doing as well. Thank you so much for your service. We're going to take a brief pause. When we return, some final thoughts. Stay with us. We've got some final thoughts about Lancaster Anti-Trafficking Network. Marita.
I think one of the best things that people can do just to get started is just open your eyes and start looking around, and don't be afraid to call. On the Latn website, there is a button on every page that says Report Human Trafficking. They can click on that and it takes them to the Polaris Project, which is the national hotline. And just if they're not sure, just check in. They'll take it from there. They'll investigate it. They'll check it out and find it out. The more we can do to bring this to light, the better our community, the stronger our community can be.
Agreed. Jen?
Yeah. I would second, I think, what Marita has shared with that. Some great resources. Shared Hope International is one of the national experts that deal with this across the U.S., and they are a wonderful resource for people to follow up, go to their website and educate themselves with their resources. There's really no reason why people can't step in and educate because there's such a plethora. And 1/3 of victims are recovered because of somebody in the community that found them.
Thank you. We're going to put up on the screen where you can contact. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for joining us today, too. We can make a difference. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, and remember, keep looking behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.